Okay, let's talk about the process of waterless printing. Um, Waterless was developed initially in the mid 60s by Dow Chemical. It was developed to be an alternative to traditional lithography, and they patented the process commercially, but there was difficulty when it came for commercial printers because as the presses would heat up without the benefit of using water, the inks would do what they call scum and tint the plate. So they abandoned the process. Dow sold it actually to a Japanese firm by Toray. And they actually developed presses with cooling systems, cooling beds for printing. And so now it's also another affiliate is, oh, now I'm thinking of the name. Well, it'll come to me. Anyway, another company has the rights to the process now commercially. But I and some others have researched it for fine art. Not using necessarily all the commercial applications, but the principle. So in principle, it's very simple and basic. You apply, I found the best material to work on is a ball grain aluminum plate. So it's aluminum that has balls and aluminum abrasion powder goes around, creating a nice texture. So that has been, I've tried other things, but it's been one of the best materials for printing. So you apply materials to the surface of the plate, and they are all acting as basically stencils, because then the whole plate is coated with, we're using silicone caulking. And then when let's say it's a piece of tape, you remove the tape exposing the plate, and when you roll ink on, it sticks to only where the plate is exposed and the silicone rejects it. So very basic in principle, but can be a little problematic, just like traditional litho for printing successfully. So I had a student in the around 1990 who was researching the process, Jeff Ryan, and he probably is still practicing it, but Jeff kind of follows more of the commercial applications of waterless, commercial chemicals and plates. I found in my archives in New Mexico a letter and information mailed by Harry Hone in 1971. It was dated, basically describing the waterless process along with a 4-color print he had done. So I followed that process. The secret coating in that was a Dow Dispersion 236 coating, which I called Dow. I got a sample, did the test as he described it, and it was about 90% successful right off the bat. So through some other research, I found out there was basically silicone, and now we are using just silicone caulking, so we're not dependent on Dow for our coatings. So some examples, this is an example of a print I haven't finished yet, but one drawing material I really like is this beautiful delicate toner application that I did here. So I'll demonstrate how you apply that. One basic material, and then there's another another alternative technique. It's kind of a tricky thing you can use in other litho applications, which is actually a reversal from where you make a positive and negative. So that's this example of a waterless print of mine as well. So there's some examples. So starting on your aluminum plate, let's say you wanted to lay out a composition on the plate from a drawing, or in this case a photograph. So one thing nice to use, not carbon paper, because that'll actually print in waterless, but we've coated a sheet of aluminum, a sheet of newsprint with iron oxide. I dissolve it in alcohol, rubbing alcohol, apply it with a sponge, and let it dry. So I've done that. I'm going to lay it down, face down on the plate, put my drawing or image on here. Now this is just an example. I'm not actually going to use this, but so then you would take a ballpoint pen. You want something that's kind of hard and fine line, and then you would trace out your composition, leaving a red line on your plate, which is kind of nice that it's red, because you know that won't print. It won't print in traditional or waterless lithography, but is an indication of your composition. So there's that. Now I'm going to, there's things, I'm going to show you basically all the materials I know that to work for waterless. You can be experimental, but I can't guarantee they will work. The ones I am demonstrating I know work because I've researched all of them and tested them. So I'm going to set up to do a photocopy transfer, because you want to go in that order of, you would have to do that first, because the coating we'll put on the plate would dissolve other materials. So I'm going to set up to do a photocopy transfer. So now I have set up my press first. You'd want to do that. I have the blanket, the felt blanket I'm going to be using, and I've tightened the pressure down to firm in contact without the plate to the press bed. So the thickness of the plate should give me the right pressure for printing. So the chemical we're using is screen wash. Sorry, there's a little loss of the print there, but it's screen wash for actually cleaning silk screens. But I found that it suits its purpose for doing this transfer. I've used a lot of materials in the past, but this seems to be the safest and one of the most successful. So what you want to do is put on a small amount, basically enough to just cover the size of the image you're transferring, and go over the whole plate, because I'm going to transfer the image to the size of the plate. And you don't want it too much, it'll bleed, and not enough and it won't transfer well. So that's a little critical part. And then you're going to place your copy in position. I'm going to cover it with a newsprint, and now I'm going to pause this, because I'm going to be running it through the press under pressure back and forth 3 times. Probably doesn't matter if you do more, but with research it seems 3 times seems to be a good number. Okay, so I have a pretty light, it's not too light because I'm going to draw on it. I want it light. And my recommendation is always to stay on the light side of your materials. It's easier to force it to go darker. So I did my transfer. It's a good idea to check it before you take it off the plate, in case you want to run it through again, or maybe it needs more pressure or some more screen wash from the back. But now it's left a little oil, especially up in these 2 areas. You can see where there were a couple drops. You want to wash that off with warm water and dry it. I blot it dry, and then then you can continue drawing on your plate. All right, so I washed it off well with water, dried it. Now I'll continue with other drawing materials. So you can use any or all of these drawing materials together, but some, like the first one I did, you see where I put the screen wash on. Obviously you want to do the transfer to that part first. And next I'm going to apply this toner water mix that lives on the white cabinet here in the corner towards the office. So it's toner powder mixed with water and some soap or photo flow you could also use. And I'm going to, so it settles out to the bottom. So if you want more of a darker value, you should stir it up, or sometimes I tilt it and then dip to the bottom. But I'm going to try to practice what I preach and stay on the light side of my drawing. So I'm going to pour just a little bit out into this bowl. Might be a little too light. I'll try this out. So the nice thing about toner that I like, this toner mix, is you can really push it around, manipulate it. I could wash it all off with water, start all over, which is a really nice benefit. But there comes that point when you want to, you like what you've created. So at that point, when this is all dry, I've preheated the oven to around 250 degrees. Be a good place to start. And I'm going to put the plate in the oven for maybe 5 minutes. And that's gonna melt the toner, which is basically a plastic, to the plate, so then I can't disturb it anymore. You could work in layers that way. If you could reheat it again and apply more, but that's the method to stick the toner to the plate. So I'm going to pause it now and do that part. Okay, so let's continue with the other drawing materials. So we have our photo, we've done the toner. You can tell the toner in the dark areas is kind of shiny, glossy, so that's an indication that it's stuck now to the plate. So other drawing materials, this is a Neocolor 2, which is water soluble, so it looks more like a Crayola type of mark you would get. So there's that. If you want to do some nice shading. Also, I like the Stabilo Aquarellable. Another one that I recommended, maybe advice to you, is an Aquatone pencil. So, more obviously like a pencil line, not necessarily a crayon line. So you have that if you want to do some nice shading. That possibility. Also, for some solids, solid line, washable Crayola, washable markers. Are nice. And for maybe larger solid areas, gum Arabic. In traditional lithography, you stop areas out that you want to remain open or white. If you're on white paper, let's say, you stop them out with gum Arabic. But in this case, it's going to serve as a stencil, and then we're going to wash it away, exposing the plate. So it's actually going to be a solid area. I mean, you can use it like a dry brush, or fill in a big shape with the gum. So when you're finished, we're going to let the gum dry, and then we're going to process the plate. All right, so everything is dried on the plate. Finished with my drawing. Now for the processing, the secret material is silicone caulking. So many types, I don't know about every type, many types will work. If you don't have the exact type I'm using, you could try, test one out. But my preference has become DAP. Doesn't really matter the color. I couldn't find white, so I have gray. But you want to make sure you get 100% silicone, not the paintable type. 100%. I like DAP because I've tested like mixing it, because we're going to thin it a little bit, and it goes into solution pretty easily with mixing. Also, all of them will have kind of a acetic acid odor to it, and this one is pretty mild regarding that. So your caulking, so it's got a seal inside if you're not familiar with caulking. So you're going to cut the tip off to open that. And then some caulk guns have this nice little pin on the end, or like a nail, but you're gonna stick it in and break the seal so the silicone can come through. You're gonna do that. You're gonna load it in the caulking gun, push the handle up, and then we'll just squeeze it. Now I'm gonna put it in, I like to use these film canisters, because our prescription pill canisters, or film canister, because you can clean them out and reuse them. So I'm gonna squeeze some out. You basically only need enough to cover your plate. It's gonna, when it's finished, I personally like to leave a little bit out of the end, so when it becomes hardened, you can just pull that little plug out and then squeeze out some more. So I've done that. Now it's pretty thick. I could coat it with this, but to make it a little easier to smooth out a nice even coating, I'm gonna thin it with some isopar. Mineral spirits can work. A safe chemical, another safe thing to use is Gamsol. You can get it like at art supply stores, similar to paint thinner, but a little more mild and safe because it's parts per million that go airborne as like an irritant. So Gamsol is good as well. So you want to estimate almost like a 50-50 ratio, and this will take a little bit of time to mix into a solution, but you want to mix it up well, because it's not, I haven't been able to keep it for an extended period. Sometimes if I'm doing a workshop and I have the screw the cap on really tight, actually I reverse it and put the inside in. It seems to work for a few days, keeping in a container. So after you've mixed it up, I like to flow, it should just start to flow out of the canister. So I'm just going to put a amount on the plate, set that aside, and then using a paper towel, I'm going to spread it over the whole surface. Make sure you coat the whole surface well initially. Also, you'll notice I have newsprint under my plate. Please place newsprint under your plate when coating your plates. We don't want to coat all our surfaces with silicone. And then I'm going to take at least one more paper towel, or maybe more, because you want to get a very thin application. You cannot get it too thin. If you leave it too thick, it won't cure and it'll just peel off your plate. So I'm going to take one more. And also, like with lithographic processes, typically you remove the drawing material before you print. So if I leave this coating thick, I'm not going to be able to do that. So they're very, very thin film. Now, my rule is to kind of leave it set overnight, or at least 24 hours. You can leave it set as long as you want, but before you go to continue and you will remove this, the silicone has to cure, so you want to give it a good amount of time to do that. So overnight is a good starting point.